What's up guys, welcome to another tutorial. For today's video, we're going to make this beautiful underbust corset. Now this one has a lace-up back and a box in the front. Please stick around to the end to see how I did it. So I started off with my basic bodice block. Now if you're new here and you want to see how I made the pattern for this bodice block, I'll put a link in the description box. So first thing I did was I marked my underbust point from the tip of the shoulder to the underbust, and in this case my underbust was 14 inches. Next, I measured 10 inches from the base of the neckline on the CF line. Now I used 10 inches because I wanted the corset to have a slight shape going upwards on the CF. Now from that point, I marked 9 inches. Now that 9 inches was the length of the box that I intended to use for this corset. Now once I did that, I went to the sides and I marked 3 inches above the waistline up and then 3 inches below the waistline. That's how wide I wanted the sides to be. So the next thing I did was do the same on the back side of the pattern, and then on the center back as well, I did 3 inches up and 4.5 inches below the waistline. After marking all these points, I went ahead to just use my French curve to draw to connect each of those points that I just marked. So from the sides, I connected the line from the CF passing through my underbust to the sides, and then the same below I used connected from the CF to the side. Same thing at the back, connected those points together, and below the waistline I did the same as well. Next step was to mark my panel lines. Now for this corset, I wanted 5 panel lines in the front and about 3 panel lines at the back. For each panel, I wanted it to be about 1.5 inch wide. So what I did was from the CF, I marked 1.5 inch for my first panel. Now I'm just taking that same measurement down so that I have a straight line. Now once I mark that, I'll just connect the straight line, connecting those points that I just marked. Now for the next panel, I measured 1.5 inch from the center dot. Now from that point, I marked 2 cm. Now once I did that, I found the center of that 2 cm I marked, and then I connected the dot. And I basically just repeated the same method to get the next panel. So here on the sides, I'm just remarking the lines so it just shows more clearly. So I'll leave it here, my side back, and then on the center front line also, I just drew another line to just show it more clearly, and I labeled it my center front. Now moving to the back, for the back opening on the CB, I wanted it to be 1.5 inch from the CB. Now this gives you more room to, tie your corset a little tighter. So once I marked those 1.5 inch, and then I just connected. Now to make another panel for the back, I marked 1.5 inch from the waist dot at the back, and then from there I marked 2 cm to create another dot. Found the center of that dot and just connected it. So here the pattern is basically almost done, so I'm just remarking the lines on the sides to just show a little more clearly. And I went ahead to label starting from the CB, and then also marked the side that is supposed to be up, and I did the same for the front, starting from the CF. Also mark the part that is meant to be up. So now the pattern is all done. So when I'm cutting this out on fabric, I'll go ahead and add 1/2 inch seam allowance to all the sides. That's the top, the bottom, and each of the sides of the pattern as well. So guys, that's it for drafting this on the bust corset. If you have any questions, please leave a comment below. I'll be glad to answer you. So once this was done, I went ahead to cut out my pattern so that I'll be able to transfer that onto my fabric. So here is the box that I'm going to use for this corset. This size is 9 inch in length. Next, I'm using this pre-cut boning, plastic boning. I like this one because I don't have to worry about ironing it, and I can just trim once I get the desired length. And I'm also using this lining and this interfacing to make my fabric a little thicker, firmer. And then for fabric, I'm using this beautiful Samakaka print. So here I've placed all my pattern pieces on the fabric. Now the way I cut this, I layered the print, the lining, and the interfacing, so I wouldn't have to cut each of them individually. It just makes it a little easier and faster as well. So once all my pieces were cut out, I went ahead to notch the top and also the waist at the waist point, so I know which sides face what side. So notch the top, and then you see there's a notch right on the waistline. So once I did that, I placed all my patterns carefully, also notched each pieces and then the waistlines as well. And then I put a little arrow so that I know that piece is joining to the next piece and so forth. So here my pattern pieces were all cut out. I went ahead to add the interfacing, iron out the interfacing off camera. So here I'm just placing them together the way I would sew them. So when I just get on the sewing machine, I just start running my stitches. So basically I'm just pinning each pieces together in the correct way, also noting that I do have the right one. So I did the same. And then here, if you'll see, I replaced the CF lining with a fabric and an interfacing. So you would want to do that. Just the CF piece. So here's the lining part of the pattern. And then I took the actual fabric part and placed them facing each other. So next I went to the back and basically repeated the same thing I did to the front piece. Pin out all the patterns the right way and then pin the linings as well. Now here all my pieces are pinned out. It's ready to sew. So here I'm just sewing out 1/2 inch seam allowance on all the lines. So I basically just repeated the same thing, sewing out all the lines, both on the front piece, the back piece, and the linings as well. Once all my seams were done, I went ahead to iron them off camera, but the front, the back, the lining pieces and all. So when I was ironing, I made sure I ironed towards the direction I wanted to stitch my seam. Now what I meant by this is that I wanted the seams to face the sides. So next, to get my casing, I made a stitch along the seam. Now before I did that, I made sure to measure it with the size of my bone, because you don't want the casing to be wider than the bone you intend to use. So I just went ahead and stitched that seam to the size of the boning. And I repeated the same on all sides, except the lining. Now once this was done, I just evened out my hem, just trimmed off any excess seam. Now in the second video, I'll show you how I inserted the box. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video.